looking at Psalm 42. As the deer pants for the streams of living water, so my soul thirsts after you, the living God. We're looking at a psalmist who is writing out an expression, a passionate expression of a personal God, because that is the only God that satisfies. We're not talking about a philosopher's God of laws and principles. We're not even talking about a theologian's God, where the canon is a closed book where things have to be studied and formulated and put into a system. We're talking about a person. If you really want to get into the heart of Paul's theology of the letters of the New Testament, you have to start with this concept that it's the exploration of a friendship, not the dry bones of religious theory. And here it is. It's how radical it is to believe in a personal God. But this is always, always how the Bible speaks. Not as a law, but as the life of the being who feels and is felt, is loved, and who loves back, and who initiates love, who feels my heartbeat, who counts the hairs on my head, who feeds the ravens, who clothes the lilies. Time and time again, page after page of the Bible expresses this outburst of the generous love of a loving Father. So, when you turn to Psalm 42, you see what it's like when that sense is gone. What happens when you lose your sense of God? And he's not thinking about principles or concepts. He's not thinking about tradition or the way it used to be. He's thinking about a person who he loved, and he doesn't feel it anymore. And why do you think he uses the image of a deer? I was looking in this commentary, and they suggest this, that the deer is a deer that's being hunted, and it is panting, and its eyes are big with terror, and the sweat is dark on its flanks, and it's heaving for breath, and it's yearning for water, and it's being driven by fear. And the psalmist is considering the taunts of people standing around him who are saying, "Where is your God?" And he's saying, "I feel hunted like the deer." Because, you know, the world can be a pretty unsympathetic place, can't it? Life can be full of misunderstanding, of taunting, of spite and catcalling. When my dad died, somebody rebuked me, calling my deep sorrow unspiritual. When Val and I went bankrupt, we were told that God was punishing us for our sin, just like Job's friends, you know. And when I got divorced, somebody told me that God was punishing me. God's left me because of my sin. And when Val got chronically ill, Christians gathered round to tell us we lacked faith for healing. The world can be pretty unsympathetic. And when Jesus called for God in that terrible moment, when he said, "Eloi, Eloi," they said, let's wait and see if Elias comes and rescues him. John Lennon said, "Life can be tough. Sometimes you feel you've had enough." It's easy to say, "Be strong." The truth is that at the very moment when your spirit reaches for God, very often your friends most misunderstand, and their sympathetic hand is withdrawn. And it says here in verse 10, "As a sword in my bones, my enemies reproach me, while they say daily to me, 'Where is your God?'" But listen, there's an important thing to say here. This feeling of being forsaken is no proof of being forsaken. Right? If God seems far from you, it's only a seem. And when you're yearning after an absent God, you are actually demonstrating evidence quite as strong as rejoicing in a present God. Reaching after what you don't experience is still faith. Even when you doubt his existence, calling out for light in the darkness, you might be closer to him than some cold Pharisee diligently serving him with an empty heart. And Jesus himself said, my God, why hast thou forsaken me?" He enters into the experience of being forsaken. Do you find that humbling? It's an amazing thought. And you have to distinguish between the feelings of faith that God is present and the hope of faith that he will be so despite the darkness. Because there are times when the cloud obscures the sun and you can't see it and you can't feel it, right? Sometimes we just feel depressed. We do. We just go into a low, a Blue Monday, and we feel depressed unaccountably and irresistibly. And sometimes just that hope of God as Father just jump-starts the engine again, that the sun will come, the night will end. And so too spiritually. You know, sometimes, I believe this, when life pulls the carpet from underneath you and you feel really, really wretched and finished, you just have to kind of hang on, don't you? Just have to hang on in there and say, the day will dawn again. This is not the end. The sun will shine again. And sometimes you don't see God's strong hand on your shoulder or his voice in your heart. This is the experience of the psalm, and it's real. The trouble is, we put our confidence in how we feel, and our feelings are all over the place. They're all up and down. They're a roller coaster. And if we put our trust in I don't feel like God's with me. Well, that's the last place you have to look for the experience of God. How can you draw strength from your own feelings? It's like trying to pull yourself out of a well by pulling your collar up. You can't do it. We're on a roller coaster of emotions. Our feelings change. Our feelings change. And the thing that depresses you today might be the thing that girds your loins up tomorrow morning. Do you hear it? Okay. There's so much to say here. Sometimes we are sorry for our sin and we luxuriate in the remorse for having been bad. We sort of almost pamper ourselves with the pain. Say, oh, I've done terrible. And we waste time. We waste time. We can't judge our own sin correctly. Listen to this. Sinners cannot judge sin. Sinners cannot judge sin. Okay. I need to know. I need to look to him. I need to get outside the spiral of my own feelings, because God is not affected by my changeability. He is not deflected by my sinfulness. And when I am low and selfish and mean-spirited, he remains serene and calm. And I have to know the truth that sets me free, that he is the I am, that he loves me and he's with me. Behold, I am with you always. And when that awareness comes into my spirit, I drink and drink again, and I'm refreshed.